Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at the agentic state as an explanation of obedience which you need to know for AQA A-level psychology in the subtopic of social influence. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. The agentic state is an explanation of obedience, which suggests people are socialized from a very young age to obey and follow the rules of society, and this involves giving up some free will and autonomy. When an individual feels they have complete control and are free and independent, they are autonomous and see themselves responsible for their own actions. They are aware of the consequences of their actions and choose voluntarily to behave in certain ways. However, when an individual obeys an authority figure, they go through an agentic shift and enter the agentic state where they no longer see themselves as responsible for their own behavior and actions but an agent of the authority figure, who has greater power because of their position in social hierarchy, whose orders they are following. An agent is not emotionless, they feel high anxiety, moral strain, when they realize that what they are doing is wrong but feel powerless to disobey. In these individuals' eyes, they see the authority figure as responsible for their consequences and they become de-individuated and therefore do not feel any guilt or personal responsibility. People may enter the agentic state because normally the concern around maintaining a positive self-image restricts behavior. However, the fact that responsibility shifts to the authority figure means the perception of self is no longer relevant. In Milgram's electric shock study, the agentic state was maintained due to the gradual commitment made by the individuals from giving earlier electric shocks. As the voltage of the shocks got higher, people continued as they felt obliged to continue and unable to stop as they had already complied with the smaller reasonable shocks prior. Thus this was a binding factor, an aspect of the situation that allows the person to ignore or minimize the damaging effect of their behavior and thus reduce the moral strain they are feeling, e.g. shifting the responsibility to the victim or denying the damage they were doing to the victims, which caused them to remain in the agentic state despite many of the participants speaking out as if they wanted to quit. The agentic state has several strengths and limitations. A strength of the agentic state as an explanation of obedience is that it is supported by research. Blass and Schmidt, 2001, showed students a film of Milgram's study and asked them to identify who was responsible for harm to the learner. The students blamed the experimenter rather than the participant. This responsibility was due to legitimate authority. The experimenter was top of the hierarchy, but also expert authority, he was a scientist. The students recognized the legitimate authority as the cause of obedience, supporting the explanation. This is a strength because it suggests that individuals, under the influence of legitimate and expert authority, are more likely to attribute responsibility to authority figures like the experimenter. This highlights the significant impact of authority figures in shaping behavior and decision-making processes, emphasizing the power dynamics at play in situations of obedience and compliance within social contexts. A limitation of the agentic state as an explanation of obedience is that it is a limited explanation. Milgram proposed people shift back and forth between the agentic state and the autonomous state. However, the idea of rapidly shifting states fails to explain the very gradual and irreversible transition Lifton, 1986, found when studying German doctors working in Auschwitz. Lifton found that ordinary doctors who originally cared for only the well-being of their patients had turned into men and women capable of carrying out vile and lethal experiments on helpless prisoners. This is a limitation because it suggests that the transition between the agentic state and autonomous state proposed by Milgram may not fully capture the intricate and profound transformations individuals can undergo in extreme situations, as exemplified by Lifton's study on the German doctors in Auschwitz. A limitation of the agentic state as an explanation of obedience is that there are alternative explanations. Fennis and Arts, 2012, argued that the process of the agentic shift was not confined to just authority but may extend to other forms of social influence. For example, they suggested that the reason for the agentic shift is because of the person's own experience of personal control, e.g., they feel less in control of their behavior. Under such circumstances, people may show an increased acceptance of external sources of control to compensate for this. Fennis and Arts conducted a series of studies in both laboratory and field settings and demonstrated how a reduction in personal control resulted in greater obedience to authority and also bystander apathy. This is a limitation because it suggests that there needs to be consideration for a more comprehensive understanding of the agentic shift, as proposed by Fennis and Arts, 2012, which suggests that personal experiences of control can also influence behaviors like obedience and bystander apathy. This broader perspective challenges the traditional view that obedience is solely driven by authority figures, indicating a more nuanced interplay of personal control and external influences in shaping behavior. Staub, 1989, also proposed that rather than the agentic shift being responsible for the transition that was found in many Holocaust perpetrators, it was the experience of carrying out acts of evil over a long period of time that changed the way in which individuals thought and behaved. This is a limitation because it suggests that there are other possible explanations for the sadistic behaviors people display beyond just the agentic state, which Milgram conceded was possible. A limitation of the agentic state as an explanation of obedience is that it cannot account for the behavior of the Nazis. Mandel, 1998, described German Reserve Police Battalion 101 where men shot civilians in a small town in Poland, World War II. They did this even though they were not directly ordered to, they were told they could be assigned other duties. This challenges the agentic state explanation because the reserve police were not powerless to disobey. This is a limitation because it suggests that the agentic state theory may not fully capture the nuances of obedience and human behavior, especially in contexts where individuals exhibit harmful actions without direct orders, as seen in the case of the German Reserve Police Battalion 101 during World War II. This challenges the simplistic view that obedience is solely a result of authority influence, emphasizing the need to consider additional factors in understanding complex behaviors like those exhibited by the Nazi soldiers. A limitation of the agentic state as an explanation of obedience is that the agentic shift does not explain many research findings about obedience. Stephen Rank Cardell Jacobson's, 1977, found that 16 out of 18 nurses disobeyed orders from a doctor to administer an excessive drug dose to a patient. The doctor was an obvious authority figure. But almost all the nurses remained autonomous, as did Milgram's participants. This is a limitation because it suggests that the agentic shift theory may not fully encompass the complexities of obedience, as evidenced by the nurse's refusal to comply with the doctor's orders despite the doctor's clear authority. It highlights the importance of individual autonomy and ethical considerations in decision-making processes, challenging the notion that obedience is solely driven by the shift into an agentic state. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.